Strong enough to curl my hair.
I'm going to water, hot water coffee. Instant coffee.
Yeah. All right. Can we get started, guys? Yeah. Excited? Yeah. All right. We're going to find out how to stay forever young today. So Cheryl and I are going to kind of go back and forth with this one. And because there is so much involved with this, let's plan to save our questions to the end. So if you come up with one, just jot it down. If you need a piece of paper, Cheryl can pull it out. We got a couple of clipboards if you need them. So yeah, for those of you watching online, if you're new to this channel, I'm Dr. Jake Tucker. We're going to be talking about aging well, living life forever young, not just for yourself, but ultimately for the people around you, for you to be able to accomplish the things that God put you. So we're going to dive into this. Our mission here at Good Life Family Chiropractic is we want to empower you to live longer, healthy lives through chiropractic care and life sessions. And our vision for that is really just to kind of take over the culture of health and healthcare in this town. We have too much emphasis in our healthcare system on symptoms. Symptoms are the only thing right now that drive action in our healthcare community. And so we need to start switching that around so that we're being proactive, investing in our health, treating it like we do our money, protecting it, and really guarding it and making sure that it's going to the right place. So we're going to dive into this. So the reason why we're doing that is because we are doing so poorly. The United States of America invests more money in healthcare, and out of all the industrialized nations, becoming dead last for not just health performance of our healthcare system, but also longevity. We underperform every industrialized nation as far as how long we should live. And if you look at it, the statistics since just COVID, we've lost 5 years of life expectancy and not gained them back. Every other industrialized nation has gained them back and then some, and we're still behind. We haven't even started to creep back from COVID. And so if you're thinking like, oh man, COVID must have hit us really hard. Yes, it did, but it hit us really hard because of controllable factors. And we're going to get into that today a little bit. And, you know, have any of you heard of blue zones? Blue zones? Okay, no, so blue zones, we're going to get into this. So these are the areas of the world where people are most likely to live over 100 years. And so back when this graphic came out, this was 2023, there were 5. You can see Loma Linda in California, so the U.S. does make an appearance on this list. Nicoya, Costa Rica, Sardinia, Italy, Ikaria, Greece, and Okinawa, Japan. There's going to be one new addition since 2023. We'll get into that. So first one here, Okinawa, Japan, and really you can say the nation of Japan is the healthiest nation in the world. The city of Okinawa, they have the most female centenarians. And so we look at what they do. Well, first off, one of the things that we're going to see across the board with all of these countries is they're coastal. It's a lot of seafood. It's a lot of being by the ocean, being by the sea, you know, the minerals, salts, all of these things that play a role in building health. They have a fresh abundance of. Now, the interesting thing about Okinawa is even though they have the most female centenarians of any of these cities or any country in the world, they actually, their younger generations don't look any different than the United States of America because of all the fast food. They have McDonald's, they have Chick-fil-A, they have Taco Bell. All these things that are so easy to get to, they have the convenience and now they have the technology. And we're actually seeing that Japan is having a birth crisis. They aren't hitting replacement rates. And so there are entire industries that are shutting down because they don't have enough people to put into those industries. So they're having similar issues to us in a lot of ways, but they do things better than us generationally in the older generations. Sardinia, Italy. This is where the most male centenarians are at. We have more 100-year-old males in Sardinia than anywhere else. What do you notice about this? The ocean again, or really this is the Mediterranean, but open access to the ocean on both sides through the Suez and through the Strait of Gibraltar. And so they have a lot of the same things. Very active culture, also, what happens from here to here? You got to go uphill, right? And we notice this with a lot of these cities, is it's a lot of walking up and down hills. And so the elder generations are being challenged just on a day-to-day basis. Then we've got Nicoya, Costa Rica. They have a large amount of centenarians as well. What do you notice here? They're on the beach again. This one doesn't have as many hills, but you can see some in the back, right? It's not just beach, it's also mountains. And then we've got Icaria, Greece. Again, a large number of centenarians here. Again, right on the water, and then up to the top of the hill, just a few hundred feet off the beach. And then Loma Linda, California. Now, this is interesting. It's not directly on the beach, but what's right there? Mountains. It's also a Seventh-day Adventist community. And so this is a lesson that they learned from the Seventh-day Adventist community, is that you need a faith background or faith foundation that brings people together. All of these communities are actually communities. They take care of each other. Their neighbors know who each other are. You're not pounding on the wall trying to get them to shut up. You go over next door and you participate in the party type of scenario. So they're very close, and they come together every, in their case, Saturday, because they're Seventh-day Adventists, to worship together and share community. Up in Singapore here, this is the brand new one. And this one, just in the last 12 months, this was added to the list. So this isn't in any of the books, or they had a documentary about blue zones. Singapore, just in the last 2 years, they started to recognize these guys are actually centenarians. Like they weren't, and then all of a sudden they are. It's like, what changed? Well, what happened is Singapore, that it's kind of a nation state, like in the model of old, like Sparta and Athens back in Greece, where everything's contained inside this one city, and it's a big trade city. But they decided as a nation state that they were going to start taxing things that were unhealthy for people, and they were going to start incentivizing and rewarding things monetarily that were healthy to do. And so they invested in bike lanes, in sidewalks, and they started taxing cars and the ability to drive. And so in Singapore, it's actually too expensive for people that aren't in the top tax bracket to drive, but the public transit is so great that nobody even cares. They can hop on a bus or hop on the rail and just jump to wherever they need to in the city. And so it's a completely different mindset. They have the same elements. They have this sense of community. They're very proud of their city. It's a very wealthy city in general. They come together quite often. They take care of each other. They honor their elders in general. They eat, obviously the ocean's right back there. They don't actually have the elevation change in Singapore like bodies do, but because of their very active lifestyle and how they invested in it, they do much, much better. And so if we're going to change and stop being the way Americans are, right? If you don't want the same results, don't do the same stuff. We got to have something to aim at. And blue zones do a really good job of stuff. So we're going to put these things in 9 different categories, and you guys can write these down. These are really important if you want to live a long, healthy life. If you don't want to die in a bed without your brain, you want these things. Number 1, regular physical activity. I talked about that mountain that they have to climb every day, the hill that they have to climb every day. Every single one of these towns, except for Singapore, has a mountain, and the ones that don't, they still have regular physical activity. They have a life's purpose. And oftentimes this comes from faith, but sometimes this comes from that sense of community. But it's something that when they interviewed the people that live in these communities, especially the centenarians, they had a strong purpose. And oftentimes, if it wasn't the community, it was family coming down and taking care of family. Reduce stress. And not because they focused on de-stress, not because they went to the counselor all the time, but they did things that created peace in their life. They had a moderate level of calorie intake. The calories that they were taking in were whole, real foods. By the average plant-based diet, they consumed more real foods than not, and even then, they consumed more plants than they did animal products. And then elimination or moderate alcohol intake. Now, in the blue zone, when they first came out, they said, oh yeah, just a small level of wine consumption is actually good. Well, since then, we've come out with research and we found that there's no healthy level of alcohol intake. The healthiest level of alcohol intake is 0. Anything above that is going to be detrimental to health. And so it's one of the things that cultures across the world get wrong, but they do only have a moderate level of alcohol intake. It's usually a small glass of wine at supper. It's always in the company of others. They're not doing it on their own, not just taking a sip just because it's something like that. They engaged in religion or some sort of spiritual practice. So, like the Seventh-day Adventists, they're Christians. Greece, that's more Eastern Orthodox. Sardinia, that's more Catholic. It wasn't any one denomination or even one religion. Obviously, Singapore is not a Christian city either, but they did come together for that, and they practiced that religiously. And then engagement in family life, they all had a strong sense of family. A lot of these the ancient cultures that preceded this actually worships their ancestors, and that's since come into different spirituality. Weeds out of that ancestral worship type of scenario. And then engagement in social life. They didn't just lock themselves in. They didn't hibernate. They didn't isolate themselves. They stayed engaged. So those 9 things are things that we're going to want to focus on. Now, you can take all 9 of those things and you can actually put those in what we've already taught you about with our 5 essentials. So what are those? We're going to break these down in larger categories. Number 1 is core chiropractic. The reason why chiropractic is number 1 is because you can't do anything without your nervous system. You can go 30 days without food. You can go 3 days without water. You can go 3 minutes without air. You can't go a single second without nerves. That's why chiropractic is so important. Not because chiropractic makes you feel better, but because it makes you heal better. Secondly, nutrition. You are what you eat, and you are what you eat. Mindset, so important. You can kill yourself with stress, but you can also set yourself up to be the healthiest person in the world by doing things. And then oxygen and exercise, so important. Like I said, first thing in that 9 things, movement is key. They challenge themselves. And then the last one here, not because it's the least, but because we have to put something last, it is minimizing that toxicity, toxic exposures that we allow in our lives actually rob us of that life. So, you ready, Cheryl? All right, you're going to take mindset.
Okay. So mindset, very important. What does mindset mean?
Condition of the mind.
Condition of the mind, the way you think. So what's included in mindset is prayer, meditation, positive attitude, sleep. A lot of times we forget that, but sleep, if you sleep 8 hours a night, that's a third of your life that you sleep. Again, very important to regenerate, let your body heal. And again, that positive attitude. Happiness, you can see they're exercising, they're getting fresh air. There's a lot of different things going on in that picture. Most of all, they have the smiles on their face. Aristotle, old philosopher, happiness is a sort of action. You can create that happiness within your lives. Laughter may be the best medicine, and I know we've heard that. There have been some movies made about, I can't remember the doctor's name, but he came in with the clown nose and Patch Adams. Okay. There's commercials on TV, like Children's Hospital or St. Jude's or somebody, where in Children's Omaha, where our doctors are trained in drawing characters, making laughs. Everybody feels better if they feel better, if they can smile and laugh. When you've got your window washer wearing a Superman costume, I just heard that on the radio recently. I've heard it several times. Fewer heart disease and fewer strokes with daily laughter, even amongst people who have risk factors. So find some of those good deep belly laughs, even if you have to just make yourself belly laugh. It's going to be a whole lot better. There you go. See, and that's what mind is good for, right? Making us laugh.
Yeah. Just smile, even if it's really genuine, actually reframe their mentality.
And just you smiling can reset somebody else's life too.
Exactly.
Make a huge difference. Absolutely. So get involved. I can't read this real well, but people who volunteer have a lot lower mortality rate. States where there's a high volunteer rate also have a higher longevity and a lower incidence of heart disease. And again, daily activity reduces the risk of Alzheimer's. So again, the more you can get involved, the more you can engage your brain, the less likely you are to develop some of these chronic diseases. Nutrition, and everybody has heard at some point in time about the core nutrition plan and about the advanced nutrition plan. Cultures with longevity eat real food, kind of like when Dr. Jake was going over those blue zones. They eat a higher plant-based diet. They live on the ocean or near oceans, so they have a higher amount of seafood than red meat. So real food, again, not processed, not the stuff that you buy at the grocery store. In the middle aisles, the center aisles are the center aisles are the bad stuff. Around the outside is usually the better stuff. This is not a diet. It's a lifestyle of wellness and better relationship with food. So we don't like to use the word diet because what do you think of when you hear diet? Die. Die. I have to suffer. I can't let myself eat. I have to deprive myself. And what does that do to your mindset? Makes you want to eat it that much more. Exactly. So again, if we think of lifestyle, think of a healthy nutrition plan and wellness. So the core plan is our basic nutrition plan that we have. Your fats, we want to encourage people to eat more healthy fats and eliminate those damaged fats. Healthy fats, of course, are your coconut, your avocado, and your olive. The other fats are highly processed. How fatty is a kernel of corn? You don't think about it. When you get corn oil, it has to be squeezed and processed and all kinds of chemicals to make corn oil. Soybeans, same thing. So they're highly processed. Proteins, if you are going to consume animal protein, we encourage organic, but then we know from previous workshops that organic doesn't necessarily mean what it used to or what we think it means. So go for grass-fed, grass-finished beef, because then it's not going to have the growth hormone and the antibiotics, and it's not going to be fed grain that had fertilizer put on it or pesticides, etc. Poultry, we want free range chickens, because again, they're going to have the free range of the farm and they're going to be digging for their own grubs. They're not going to be fed corn or whatever else that may be fed to them, because the corn had the pesticides on it in the first place. Okay? And seafood, wild caught and Pacific Ocean is better than Atlantic Ocean. Pacific Ocean is more free, wild seafood. The Atlantic, although it's technically wild caught, they put food in the water so they attract the specific fish they want to feed, they want to catch. So that's not exact, it's more farm raised, but it's wild. Carbohydrates, again, eat more vegetables. And as I say often, vegetables are done not what most Nebraskans think are vegetables. In Nebraska, we think corn and potatoes are vegetables. They're not. Surprise. They are starches. Okay? Sweet potatoes are yams. Those are a good source of a lot of vitamins, and those are healthier than your russet potatoes. your golden Yukons, whatever those white potatoes are. Corn, of course, like I said, is going to be a grain. It's also got a large amount of pesticides, fertilizers, etc. on those. Eliminate refined grains and eliminate sugars. There's fruits that are better for us because they are less tend to raise our blood sugars. Those fruits are going to be your Granny Smith apples, your berries, and your grapefruit, lemons, and limes. If you can peel the skin off and don't eat the skin, it's okay to get them regular. If you eat the skin, we encourage them to be organic and still wash them off very carefully. The advanced plan, again, same with the fats, eliminate those damaged fats. Moderate protein intake, and then eliminate grains, all grains. So wheat, rye, rice, barley, et cetera, all grains. Most fruits, the fruits that are allowed on this plan are those that I listed, the low glycemic. Your berries, your Granny Smith apples, and your grapefruit, lemons, and limes. And then eliminate all sugar with the advanced plan. This is also called the healing diet. So if you remember when you started, in whatever book or version you got, it have a list of disease processes that they recommend the advanced plan for. Diabetes, high blood sugar, low blood sugar, high blood pressure, heart disease, liver disease, kidney disease, ADHD, et cetera, et cetera. The Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15. This comes from the Environmental Working Group. Was this the updated 2025? Okay. So ewg.org. You can go to that website. The Dirty Dozen, these are the foods that you, I didn't say new in 2025. These are the foods that you should purchase in organic version to prevent pesticides, etc. on those. The Clean 15, these are okay to get locally. You can get them non-organic. So you can see pineapple, of course, what do we do to pineapple? We cut all that rind off of it. Sweet corn, we're gonna pull all the shucks off, the husks. No, I won't. Same thing with avocado, papaya, onion, we peel away some of the skin on that. Your frozen sweet peas, asparagus, cabbage, watermelon, cauliflower, bananas, mangoes, carrots, mushrooms, and kiwi. So again, not all of these are listed on the advanced plan because some of these have really high glucose content, but they're going to be okay to get non-organic. These, again, your berries, your grapes, your peaches, pears, those things, a lot of times we're going to eat the skins with them. And so it's really, you really need to get those organic.
So what about farming practices? How do we do in the United States with farming practices? We have good minerals in our soil that help create nourishing food, or is our food been deprived of nutrients? It's been deprived of nutrients. It's been deprived. Does anybody know how much it's been deprived? Quite a bit. So an example that I've given in the past and been told over and over is a head of broccoli in the 1930s and 1940s had almost 200% more nutrients. And specifically, they were measuring vitamin C compared to a head of broccoli today. So you think about broccoli, it's one of the most antioxidant rich vegetables that you can eat. Anti-cancer properties, it's a healing food. It's on the advanced food, but just the broccoli alone doesn't have near the amount of nutrients that it used to. And so while we may have been able to live off of just broccoli, 100 years ago, now we can't. We would have to do twice as much just to get the same amount of nutrients out of it. And so where do we go? What do we need then? For years and years, I've taken and I've recommended the daily essentials, and many of you have taken those as well. Just in the last 6 to 7 months, we've come out with a brand new line that's not necessarily replacing the daily essentials, but it's a step better than the daily essentials, so that you guys can get even more nutrients out of what you do. So we've got 3 here, and they work together. They're very synergistic with how they work. Number 1 here, and this is the first one I recommend for most of you guys. I'm a chiropractor. You guys come to me because you're hurt, and so I give you something that helps with, how much that hurts. That's the inflammation and immune support. And so this really helps. It's got vitamin D3 in it. It's got all the vitamin D3 that you need on a daily basis. You have to go buy separate vitamin D3. It's got collagen in it. It's got curcumin in it. It replaces the cell repair, not the cell repair. I can't remember which one, but it replaces a list of like 7 or 8 different supplements that I would recommend in the past. All in one there. Second one that I recommend usually is digestion and detox. And that actually encapsulates your probiotics, your prebiotics, your postbiotics, your parabiotics, and your digestive enzymes. And it also comes with a detoxification component in there as well. This cellular health and longevity, if you've got any sort of heart issues at all, this is helping to replace that cellular repair. It also replaces CoQ10. It doesn't have CoQ10, but it has the big brother of CoQ10 that actually gets the antioxidants that your heart needs to pump, which are blocked off if you're taking statins at all to suppress your cholesterol levels. So these 3 work very synergistically in combination with one another to absorb and digest and get your nutrient levels up. These are also have organ in them. So if you've ever heard that kidney and liver are good for you, I've heard that my whole career. But how many times have I eaten that? Like maybe once. I'm not a huge fan. You can, but it's very hard. You have to go to a butcher. Find a butcher and he'll give you one. He might even just give it away because it's so hard. But because so few people eat it, we've actually put that in here to help with the nutrient content. So if you're iron deficient, you find a lot of that in this because of some of the kidney and some of the liver that's been placed in here. And then you don't have to go chew through some liver. Right? So this is going to be much more nutritionally dense, bioavailable, and absorbable than even the daily essentials, which were already better than 99% of the supplements that were on the market. So we're just taking the ball, we're moving it closer towards the goal for you guys. So it's easier to bridge where you're at with the limited diet that you guys are able to get and get you much closer to where you need to be with those supplements. Now, if you're dealing with most of the issues that many of us deal with aging, there is some additional steps that we can take to help with that. So the cell repair, I mentioned this as being replaced by the cellular health and longevity, unless it's not keeping up. So the one thing that cell repair is richer in than just the cellular health and longevity is it's richer in antioxidants. Not that the other one doesn't have antioxidants in there, but antioxidants fight free radicals. And one of the things that we see as we age as our body itself actually releases more and more free radicals. Free radicals, anybody know what free radicals cause? Cell damage, inflammation, and cancer. And so if we're going to fight these things, because people don't usually get cancer until their 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, after they're already starting to feel some of the effects of that, then cell repair is a great way to come in and clean up all of that free radical damage that we've got. Collagen peptides, what's collagen good for? Everything. Joints, yes. So if you're dealing with degenerative arthritis, which Cheryl's going to cover in a few minutes, then collagen is essential. It is the material that builds up the protective layer there, but it also builds up the bones. It also builds up every cell in your body, and it also builds up the skin, and it also builds up your hair, and all these things. So collagen peptides, very protein rich. And so oftentimes, instead of supplementing with the protein source, we'll supplement with the collagen source, and you're also getting the protein content with that. And then this is coming from a grass-fed source. So your grass-fed, grass-finished source. So you know it's not coming from a corn-fed cow. That's also going to make you inflamed if their collagen is supposed to a healthy cow. Now, magnesium is one of the nutrients that isn't very high in these. It's one that I recommend you supplement with separately. So the multi-magnesium helps to fill the gaps where that's not getting. So this one is about 4 different sources of magnesium. It's not just magnesium glycinate like we had in the daily essentials. It's actually got several other versions so that you can build up from several different angles, and different organs absorb different types of magnesium better. This is not the type of magnesium that makes you rest either as a side benefit. If you need that kind, that's magnesium citrate. That'll help to move the bowels. And this is also not the same kind that you get from the Epsom salt bath. That's magnesium oxide. That's not as good to take internally. It's hard on your digestive system. So these are super easy on your digestive system. Won't force you to go to the bathroom if you don't actually. And then the last one here is curcumin plus. So it's curcumin plus. I believe it's got resveratrol in there as well. So that was the one thing that people said, oh, a glass of red wine every single night make you healthier. Well, it wasn't actually the glass of red wine. It was the resveratrol that was in the glass of red wine. And that's a potent antioxidant that helps fight off inflammation. Curcumin is the most potent antioxidant that we have. It's technically, it's curcuminoids, and we find those very readily in turmeric. So a lot of people will take a turmeric supplement, but if it doesn't have enough curcuminoids in it, then it's not a very high quality turmeric supplement. You spend a lot of money on that. But if you can get a high quality curcumin supplement, and then have something like resveratrol in there, it'll actually help with the absorption of the curcuminoids. You're getting more bang for your buck there with the curcumin. So those are the supplements that we recommend we take, not just to deal with symptoms, but to prevent those symptoms and to reverse chronic disease, helping to bridge the gap. One other thing I would recommend if you're going to be taking these every single day is an omega supplement. Unless you're going to be eating fish multiple times a week, you're not going to get enough omega-3s for your brain to stay healthy. And so it's not in here and it's not in here. So an omega supplement, specifically omega-3, mostly because the American food supply is very rich in omega-6s. So omega-6s aren't bad for you, but when it gets out of ratio, which the American ratio is about 17 to 1 omega-6s to omega-3s, it's supposed to be about 2 to 1. Between 1 to 1 and 4 to 1 is ideal. And so if you get out of ratio, it creates inflammation that even curcumin can't deal with. So you have to get omega-3s into your diet. The only source for those is animal sources. You can't get omega-3s that cover all the spectrum. Eating a vegan diet, so you have to get at least some fish in there in order to stop that. Next, we're going to talk about toxicity. So Cheryl listed off the Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15. So one of the things that we've seen, this is 2014, so you can imagine that in the last 10, 11 years, this number has increased by 100,000 new chemicals that they noticed just in the previous few decades. So it's not just in our food though either. So top sources, yes, food, absolutely, because that's what we put in our mouths. But our digestive system actually is a semi-permeable membrane. It's not supposed to absorb everything that goes through there. And so it actually protects you from some of those pesticides that are there. But what we breathe, our lungs do not have as good a filter. There's mucus there that catches a lot of it. There's cilia there that catches a lot of it. But if you're breathing too much bad air or bad chemicals in your environment, and where is it worse, outside or inside? Inside. Inside by a lot, even on the worst day. So I did all my postgraduate work in Atlanta. Atlanta's got some of the most toxic air in the world outside. It was still 20 times cleaner than inside air, breathing inside air, because you get this forced HVAC system that's pulling air out of the room and then recycling it back in. And so you get this buildup as people come in and out of a building, and it just kind of sits inside these buildings. So yeah, you gotta get good ventilation. Unfortunately, a building like this, we just don't have windows that open to ventilate it out. And so at home, you should be regularly changing your filter, regularly cleaning your HVAC system, and making sure that's clean. Water, right? So we're getting that in our water. We did this in the toxicity workshop a few months ago. Who remembers the number one most toxic chemical in our water in Nebraska? No, not quite. Arsenic. It was about 240 times the recommended levels in Lincoln City municipal water. So if you turn open that, tap and you fill up a glass and you take a sip or you put that in your coffee, you're getting a daily dose of arsenic. I say good in complete air quotes because I don't think there is a healthy level of arsenic. And so that's just one of like 14 different chemicals we saw in that list. Yeah. Well, and you think about where do we get our tap water from? Well, it's coming from the aquifer, right, which encompasses several states. But that aquifer has been collecting water runoff from our farms for, hundreds of years. But the last 100 years, we've added all of these new chemicals and pesticides and herbicides, some of which contains arsenic, some of it contains all these other chemicals in it that we know cause cancer. So we want to make sure that our water source is as purified as possible. And so I recommend, if you have the money for it, get a whole house reverse osmosis system. And if you can't afford a whole house reverse osmosis system, then get a shower filter and get a water filter. Better than Brita, we want to get something that actually, like a charcoal filter that filters out as much as possible. So there's a few options there. My go-to brand for the shower filter and the tap water is Aquasana, because they're expensive and they do the job that they say that they do. You can also invest in other types of systems, but this is not that workshop, so we're not going to go that deep in that. Personal care products. I found them at natural grocers. They've got some good ones on there. Usually I do research online and then I find them, either on Amazon and then research it from there, or go somewhere else and then go back to Amazon and do some comparison of different water filtration systems. Personal care products. This one really has to do with the principle that whatever you put on your skin, whether it's water or a cream or a gel or a soap, 30% of it is going to get absorbed directly into the bloodstream. And so we got to watch out for the toxic chemicals in our products. A good rule of thumb is that if you wouldn't put it in your mouth, you shouldn't put it on your skin. And so you want a food grade soap, you want a food grade hair wash, you want food grade everything that's going on your body. Food grade makeup, food grade makeup removers. So you just want to make sure that that's healthy. Household products, you can lump in your kitchen items with this. And so cooking with a nonstick pan is asking for trouble because of all the PFAs, basically forever chemicals that are in there that get caught in your brain and start to break it down and lead to cognitive issues. So we want stainless steel pans for our cleaners. We want to clean with vinegar or baking soda. Those are our big two with that. If you can eat it, it's going to be good to put around your house in the green. No nonstick. Fortunately, stainless steel is nonstick if you preheat it. If you get it to a point where water starts to kind of run around the pan, if it's hot enough for that, all of the rings, the openings in it have closed because it's expanded to that point, and you can cook eggs in that and it won't stick to the pan. So.
And then
Cast iron is actually okay. It's just, you gotta be careful. My wife's burned herself on her cast iron pan a few times, and burning yourself is not healthy. So, and then the iron that's in there, you're not gonna get a whole lot of it unless you're scraping at the food in the pan. If it's a cheap pan, you can get some. That iron is not food grade. That's not readily absorbable. Don't use cast iron because you're iron deficient. You want to make sure that you're only really using it as a clean cooking source. You're not going to poison yourself with it unless you're really scraping at that pan while the food's in. So just make sure you're using a wooden cooking source. Plastics, we don't want to be absorbing those into our digestive system. So black plastic is worse. It has more of the forever chemicals in there. It leaches more. So like a coffee pot that has the coffee maker that's all black plastic is actually going to have more plastics in the coffee than, say, a white plastic coffee. So getting the right color of plastic. Ideally, it's just a stainless steel or a French press would have even less of that. Then in-home air quality, I touched a little bit out of air. So we want to get those 5 different sources. So one of the reasons I got into doTERRA is because it actually replaced a lot of the products I was buying commercially that kept tricking me into thinking they were healthy. You know, I bought this big old Costco-sized lavender scented cleaner. I forget the name of it. And then when I looked it up, like 6 months later, after I'd been using it around the office, it was a 10 out of 10 for most toxic ingredients. So I was like, okay, we got to switch this thing up. So I went ahead and, because there's hundreds of oils, and it's impossible to do one good workshop on all the oils. And so I just picked a couple here that are good for the brain, good for aging. So the oils that are good for the brain, number one, sandalwood helps decrease tension, well-being. Frankincense is called the mother of all oils, but it's especially good for crossing the blood-brain barrier and supporting the brain. Thyme is good for antioxidants, it's really good and helps to protect your brain. Petitgrain, I've never used, but I've heard that it calms and soothes the brain when stress. Rosemary is really good for cognitive performance and relieving mental fatigue. And you notice that it's also right over here for hair loss as well. So you apply it to your scalp, which is super close to your brain, and not only does it help keep your hair on your head, but it prevents that, or it helps the cognitive function as well. That's the rosemary. Yeah, really good. So rosemary and lavender, you can either put it on before and then continue to massage it with your shampoo and your conditioner, which doTERRA does make both of those. Or what I like to do is put it on after I've applied my conditioner and just leave some on my scalp to help protect my hair. That's the rosemary and the lavender. Yeah. And then lemon is really good to help with memory. If you got a diffuser at home, diffuse that throughout the day. This says 15 minutes, but when I find it, I stick it on in my bathroom, and it's running in my bathroom all the time. It helps clean the air, but it's also really good for helping your memory to retain just information that you require to protect. And then the best ones for skin, again, frankincense. Applying it to the skin can really help with that. Dark marks, age spots, scars. Myrrh helps with wound healing and it's loaded with antioxidants. And then geranium, antioxidants, antimicrobial properties in there as well. So a lot of really good uses. There's a book on the counter out there if you ever have some extra time in the office. You just want to flip through for different uses for those. And then each of you should have a little, we give out with most of our new care plans, a little square reference guide that you can go through and look up what the good for, or if you're dealing with something with the next is fitness. Back to Cheryl.
Okay. So we talked about the fitness in the blue zones, the ups and down the steps, the climbing the mountain. Some of them have to walk a long ways to get the water or to get food, to chase their animals if they're raising their own livestock. How much do we recommend? How much time for exercise? Okay, 30 minutes a day, at least 5 days a week. So that's kind of the recommendation, or the generic forever has been 10,000 steps a day. It works for some, it's not appropriate for everybody because everybody can't get in 10,000 steps. Again, we talked about those cultures that are moving. Some of those cultures, they had morning yoga classes, or they have, everybody meets in the park, does their stretching, then they go about their day, and then middle of the day, they all come back after they've eaten lunch and do some more stretching, do some walking exercises. Our culture movement has become the exception instead of the norm. Definitely. Short bursts, short surges of energy. So you don't have to go full bore exercise for 30 minutes to an hour. You're better off if you do a minute on, a minute off, or 3 minutes full as you can go, and then take 3 or 4 minutes keep moving, but don't go at that same rate. The burst of energy, some of you may have heard of it, high intensity exercise or high intensity training. Okay. So those are better for you. You get a longer benefit from the HIIT as you do from just continuing to walk on the treadmill or walk around the block for 30 minutes. And then cultures with longevity are not sedentary. Again, we said that. What do a lot of us do when we get home from work? Sit on the couch with our feet up for 2 or 3 or 4 hours through the rest of the night. Again, and then we wake up and go to bed. Yeah, exactly. So longevity cultures, these are the cultures that are moving all the time. They don't sit and rest. They don't take a day off. They continually tend to the gardens, tend to the animals. They are in and out of everybody's lives, taking care of each other. Degenerative arthritis. If you don't use it, you lose it. So degenerative arthritis, it's also called osteoarthritis. It is the most common of all of the arthritises. And what happens, kind of you can see kind of on that picture, but the cartilage is supposed to cover the bone to make it cushiony and help protect the end of the bone. When those bones get out of line a little bit, that cartilage starts to wear away. The more that, or pressure, if I'm using a joint too much, or overweight, obesity is a big cause of degenerative arthritis. Or if I use my joints improperly, if I'm throwing a baseball over and over and over again, I kind of wear out those joints. As the cartilage wears down, then the bone will start to grow to help protect itself. It's called bony overgrowth or bone spurs. And then that's what causes all the pain that continues to further wear away at the cartilage as well as some of the ligaments and tendons. This hurts. And arthritis, like I said, is one of those wear and tear diseases. We usually start seeing it in patients when they get into their 50s and their 60s. And then the doctors start saying, well, we need to inject some cortisone in there, try to get down the inflammation. Unfortunately, what else does cortisone do? It eventually wears out that knee faster. You get bone loss, wears the joint down. You can only have 4 shots a year. And a lot of times it doesn't work though. Plus the damage that it can do. Plus there's a whole lot of other side effects of steroids. Then they want to do medications, the non-steroidal anti-inflammatories. Then what do they want to do? PT. Oh, guess what? Let's do surgery now and do a total joint replacement. Okay. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't, but they're not fun either. I've been through several of those surgeries, both as a nurse and as a patient. So we'll let April talk a little bit more about the stem wave here.
Mine's pretty easy. So all of you know that the stem wave, it's really good with helping with reduction of your pain, reduces the pain by looking for the inflammation. It has acoustic waves that go through your body and help with that regeneration of your cells and your ligaments. So it's really good when you have like arthritis, because arthritis is literally pain, is literally inflammation. So the machine is reducing that and it helps with the pain. Other things that we work on are like the neck and back. If you have those aches and pains, it will help with immediate pretty much of pain. We usually tell everybody when we walk out of here, if you're a 7 or 8, we'd like to see you a 6 or 5. the upper extremities, so your shoulders, elbows, wrists. I work a lot on those, especially with arthritis and pain. I'm seeing a lot of people for carpal tunnel in the older ages, and the wrists are really, really big with helping out. My other big ones are, like Cheryl was saying, is the knees. I've helped people not have to go to surgery and with the stem wave because we were able to help with repairing and improving that mobility for their knees, and they have less pain. So that's always great. I've helped people with ankles. I have a lady who she had worked as a teenager in waiting tables, spilled coffee on her ankle. Her ankle was really, really big, and it was like that all her life. Her ankle is now able to get into shoes without having to have specific shoes because of the stem wave. Foot, we do a lot of neuropathy on the feet, and sometimes the hands. We have a special protocol for that. So if anybody's having that issue, make sure you send them to me. And then soft tissue injuries, the muscle, the tendons, like I said, it helps with the repairing of the tendons. If you guys do have some kind of operation for whatever reason, it helps speed up that process of healing. So, all right.
Very cool. I've actually been able to use this stuff. I think all of us
Yeah,
use it
we
for
all have. I
something
use it
or
all
other.
the time with
So
my wrist.
when we got it, we had gotten it pretty much because my elbow was giving me so much trouble. And so I was getting tennis elbow from adjusting 200 of you guys every single week. And, doing the same motion over and over and over again. And, I was getting it adjusted. I was getting it massaged. I was, putting deep blue on it. I was, eating the right diet and taking the right supplements. And it wasn't awful. I could still adjust, but it hurt and it was bothering me. And I knew that if I didn't take care of it, that signal that's telling me that something's wrong, the signal wasn't the problem. It would ultimately lead to more problems. And so at one of the seminars that I was at for continuing education, they had one of these machines out there. I'm like, okay, show me what it does. This bothers me right here. Where would you put it? What would you do? And so he starts doing it, and man, it was not the stem wave version. It was a more rudimentary version. And so it was like I was almost jumping out of my seat with how painful it was when they were running over the tissues, which tells you that there is a lot of inflammation in the joint. But then after it was done, once the stinging subsided a little bit, I was like, that actually doesn't hurt anymore. That sensation for me lasted for about 3 months. And then it started coming back again. So I'm like, shoot, if that worked that well and kept up with the 200 adjustments a week I'm doing, imagine what that would do if I had regular access. Because the cool thing about the stem wave is it doesn't just deal with the inflammation, it also recruits stem cells to the damaged tissue. Their body's own stem cells. And so it helps those damaged tissues to regrow. So we're not just addressing pain, we're actually helping the damaged collagen. And like in the case of my knee, I tore my meniscus about 3 months ago. It's helping that meniscus knit itself back together so I don't have to go and get surgery. And so I don't know.
Or do a stem replacement, that's about $5,000.
Yeah, stem cell injection is about $5,000 a surgery. I'd have to take weeks off of work, plus the cost of the surgery, plus my copay on everything. And then they'd probably give me some medication to deal with the pain from the surgery. And so ultimately, something like this, if you were to get a treatment, our normal price is only $150 a session. That's good for me for 3 months, right? That's not everybody's problem. Some people it takes 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 to even get to the point where it starts to go away. But what we're doing for you guys, since you guys took the time out of your day to show up and be here, if you wanted to try that out, we're going to do $29 for a discovery session. So if you're wondering, is that going to help with my knee, or that going to help with my leg, or that's going to help with my shoulder or my hip, you can try that out today for this $20. So,
Not today, but
or not today. We're done for the day after this. But if you want to schedule it today before you go, we're going to give that to you for this $20. So, literally, 75, 80% off. So that leads me to chiropractic. In chiropractic, you guys, this is way more than just me crunching on you, right? This is way more than you just feeling better. I love the pop. Chiropractors are addicted to the crack is a great joke that we tell each other. But it really comes down to the philosophy. Because when you look at what controls all healing and function, what controls aging or youth in your body, it comes down to the central nervous system. When you talk about your heart beating, what controls that? Not the heart itself, it's actually your brain that controls your heart. Your heart isn't just the cardiovascular system, it's the neurocardiovascular system. For your lungs breathing, do the lungs control your breathing or the brain? The brain, it's a neuro respiratory system. You go to the digestive system, there's a gut brain there. The third nervous system is called the enteric nervous system, but it needs to communicate with the sympathetic and the parasympathetic in the brain itself. And so it's communicating through the spine and through the nerves. And so those nerves, that spinal cord needs to be properly protected. And that's the role of the spine and the spinal column. It should be straight up and down from the front, 345 degrees to the side, just like that. And when it's in that proper position, there can be no pressure damage on it. And so that's ideal. That's where we get 100% function from, is that proper alignment. And that 100% function, that's what controls you. In fact, there was a chiropractic study where they looked at telomeres. Anybody hear of telomeres before? No, it's in the field of genetics. You know of it. Telomeres, your telomere length, so you're looking at your DNA, you're looking at all these, different base pairs coming together. A telomere is a part of that when you're young is really long, and when you're old is really short. We see it directly correlated to aging. And what we saw when we looked at telomere length before and then after an adjustment is that the telomere was longer after an adjustment. Isn't that incredible? So literally, when I lay my hands on you and I twist and it pops, or I grab that arthrostim and I push that vertebra back into place, you're getting younger. So what's the best thing I can do for you to help keep you young is not to sell you supplements, give you some stem wave, make you eat a better diet, make you exercise more. Those are all great things, obviously. That's what cultures in the world do to stay healthy. But it's actually to give you that adjustment, remove the pressure off of your nervous system so that you can function better and you can stay younger. And so, here's an example from one of our patients. She's probably watching right now, honestly. She came to me when I was on the radio, elderly. Some people would call her old. I call her young at heart, forever young. She'd been going to chiropractors for years, but not many chiropractors had taken x-rays of her spine. We found 2 scoliosis curves, one in the low back and then one through here. Now, this right here, this is from the front, right? This should be perfectly straight. Anywhere that it takes a sideways bend of 2 degrees or more, that's considered subluxation. Subluxation literally interferes with the brain's ability to communicate with the organ cells and tissues. So right here, these are the nerves that branch out to her heart and to her lungs. If her heart and her lungs are not getting the signals from the brain that they're supposed to, is there any way that they're going to function at 100%? No, so that subluxation was literally killing her heart and killing her lungs, making it more likely that she was going to deal with heart issues or lung issues. Now, she didn't come to me for heart issues or lung issues. Her shoulder hurt. Right? So what did I do? I looked at her spine to see, was her brain able to talk to her shoulder? Who would have thought? Right? The thing that controls the shoulder. Why would we look at that when there's a shoulder problem? No doctors would do that. They'd look at the shoulder. They'd look to see if it was damaged. But if you have full range of motion and it just hurts to do that, it's not necessarily a shoulder problem. It can be a control problem. And so we saw the scoliosis. Those nerves going out to the shoulder were being interfered with there, that subluxation interfering with that. And so we started her under not just chiropractic care, because she's been getting chiropractic care for years without experts, without knowing she had scoliosis. We did corrective chiropractic. We found the cause of the problem and we started to address it. So she did the mix, fix, set protocol, right? 1, 2, 3. We warmed up her spine, we adjusted it, and then we set it in place, and then she did her home exercise. That mix, fix, set protocol applied over 3 months, took her from an 11-degree scoliosis there down to about a 5-degree curve off to the side there. And at that point, do you think her shoulder was bothering her very much anymore? No. Did I address her shoulder? Occasionally. But the shoulder wasn't the problem. The shoulder was where the symptom was. We have to address root cause for every problem, or else we're going to end up dealing like our health, like most Americans do. which is taking more medication than any other country in the world, spending more on healthcare than any other country, spending more per person on healthcare than any other country in the world, and ending up with the lowest levels of health, the highest mortality rate, and the least amount of centenarians. And so if we want to do better, we have to focus on that. So if you're wondering what are some signs of subluxation, these are all signs that it's been there for 20 years. So number one, headaches. Anything disrupted in the spine, especially right up at the top here and right down here at the bottom, can cause a headache. And I say right down here at the bottom because this is the only spot that your spinal cord attaches to your spine, other than your brain. And so if that tailbone gets twisted off one way or the other, that can cause tension all the way up and down. If you get misaligned between the skull and the first cervical vertebra or the second cervical vertebra, there's so many cranial nerves that come out there that you reach out and go up into the head. It also blocks off cerebrospinal fluid flow, the blood flow up there, and that can create tension in the skull that creates headaches as well. Menstrual problems. Where do you think we would find the nerves that control your menstruation organs? Gentlemen, you don't have these in case you're wondering. You can laugh, that's fine. But menstrual problems, where do those come off? Do they come off up top, down low, right? We're looking at low back. We've got low back issues as a woman. Very often that increases the intensity or creates erratic menstrual issues. And so we want to make sure that that low back's taken care of that. High blood pressure, there's two areas in the spine that look for that. Number one is right here under the first cervical vertebra. If that's out, that can interfere with the vagus nerve that travels down to the heart. Second area is right here between the shoulders. Anybody ever seen anybody walking around like this before? Guess how many of the people that walk around like this have high blood pressure or medicated high blood pressure? All of them. Because this going forward, this hunching, it doubles your risk of a cardiovascular event because of the pressure that goes out to the nerves that go to the heart and control that. It's a stress response. Depression, that's going to be up top again. There's a specific part of your brain stem that controls the release of serotonin and dopamine into the brain. That's right under here. But also, we go low back, goes out to the gut. Gut health oftentimes is responsible for how you feel about yourself. And if the nerves going out to the digestive organs are being disrupted, oftentimes it will interfere with the production of serotonin and dopamine. 70 or 90% of the serotonin in your gut, or 90% of the serotonin in your body is produced in the gut. 50% of the dopamine is produced in the gut. Insomnia, if you're not sleeping well, that's one of the first positive side effects we see from chiropractic adjustments is people sleeping better. If I look at all of our re-exam forms, that's probably the first thing that people start to notice besides pain starting to improve. Sciatica and low back pain, if it hurts, it's been going bad for a long time. I just had a gal come through here this afternoon that has sciatica, low back pain, going on hip pain. And I looked at her low back and she had a slightly bulging disc at L5. But what was worse was she had completely lost the curve in her neck. It had gone the other direction. So instead of this way, this way. And so that tension on the spinal cord, because it flipped, created a path down there where just a little bit of a disc bulge in the low back created that low back pain and sciatica following soccer. And so we're going to be working not just on the low back, but we're also going to work on the neck. That's the benefit of taking exercise. Neck pain, obviously, if this is out anywhere in here, that can create pressure on the nerves going to the muscles of the neck, but also down here, this is the foundation for the neck. If you can't fully move your neck because this isn't moving, then we can adjust this all day and not actually. So we need to address both sides. Dizziness is usually up top, or it could be a brain balance issue. Sometimes you've been firing so hard on one side, whether that's visually or hearing or even smelling, everything's coming from one side, that it impacts how often your brain's firing, and that can actually make you dizzy. So first thing I'll check is occiput and atlas, and then I'll go and check your vision and make sure that you're seeing two equally sized objects the same on both sides. Fatigue, if you've got a 2-year-old, there's not much that a chiropractic adjustment will do for you other than help you get to sleep faster. But if you're just fatigued all the time, like chronic fatigue syndrome, then oftentimes that's a misalignment at the top. Acid reflux, That's oftentimes due to low to mid back misalignments and subluxations in the spine. Numbness and tingling, it depends on where the numbness and tingling is. Asthma, that's respiratory, that's going to be vagus nerve again, that's going to be upper back again. More people that have breathing problems end up out here with hunched shoulders and a barrel chested rib cage to open up the lung space and open up the airways, but that puts more pressure on the nervous system, which then puts them into fight or flight and creates more breathing problems. And so we want to make sure that those subluxations are dealt with appropriately. So every time I adjust you, I'm adjusting you for subluxation, even if it doesn't hurt. People often ask me after I'm done, so I was pretty good, right, Doc? And I'm like, well, how many spots did I adjust? You know, you might have been feeling good, you might not have hurt anything along the way, but if I found something to adjust, I found a subluxation in your spine, and we literally lengthened your life and improved the quality of your life by adjusting that. And so that's what we're doing every time we adjust. So action steps. What are we going to do out of today? I just gave you so much information, right? I mean, we've got 2-3 pages worth of notes in some cases. So number one, pick 1, 2, or 3 things that you can do today to improve your life. I don't want you to do all of this today. Now, if you're doing 99% of this and you found one more thing that you can get better at, pick that one thing and do it. But we need to take action today in order to make improvements that get us better. If we don't take action today, what's the odds that we're actually going to do tomorrow? 50% reduced. And if we wait until the day after, it's 50% reduced from there. So now we're down to 25%. If we wait until the next day, now we're down to less than 10% odds that we'll even do anything regarding this presentation. So pick something today. Fix a good suffer, exactly. Keep learning is number 2. So obviously, if you're only implementing 1 to 3 things today, and there's 100 different things that we listed off, or at least 9 things on that list that the blue zones do, we need to keep coming back so that we can implement more. The next workshop is actually our Gut Reset Masterclass. And so Cheryl and I have been diving into the GI Spotlight testing. She's been certified in 2 of the different tests in the last 2 months. I'm still working on my first one, but I'm learning a lot in the process. And so we're going to dive into that and opening up that Pandora's box of things. We've seen some really incredible testimonials, even in the first couple of weeks of doing that GI Spotlight testing, where people are just sick and tired of dealing with digestive issues or immune issues based off of the medical model, and we're able to get to the root cause of it instantaneously with what we do with our GI Spotlight test. So that's on Monday the 29th. We'll do that at the same time, 6:15 p.m. And that's actually part 1. Part 2 is actually going to be a month later. It's going to be gut health and cancer. So October is always Breast Cancer Awareness Month. We're going to be focusing on all cancers. That'll be on Monday the 27th at 6:15 p.m. So that'll be a really good one as well. That one we won't be focusing so much on the Spotlight test. We'll have some of the Spotlight testing, but we'll be focusing more on how the microbiome is involved in either creating or curing cancer. And then number 3 here, you got to create your tribe. You can't do this alone. That was one of the big principles from the Blue Zones, is we have to do this together. And so if you've got friends or family that should be here, bring them. I can't do it for you. I can put ads out there. I can go out to the event center. I can go to Natural Grocers and teach classes, but you're the only one that knows all the people that you know. And unless we've been introduced, there's nothing we can do for each that guy. So we're going to get each of them a $49 new patient special for friends and guests. So what that includes is exam, x-ray, first adjustment, and report findings. So $49, and that helps bridge the gap with all the insurance. Because most insurance, the deductible or the copay is way higher, or it's just uncovered. We're talking about Medicare. So we'll help bridge that gap. You just get them here. So we're gonna, if you bring them as well, that card that we just punched, you get another punch if you bring a guest, and for each guest that you bring, we'll do that. If you want to set up a workshop where they're at to lower the bar for them even further so they can step right, just let me know. We'll bring lunch to them. You can come along too, get a free meal out of it. But that also counts as well. So keep doing the stuff that you're doing. I applaud you guys for being here tonight. Supplements, if you buy any of the supplements that we highlighted tonight, That's 15% off those and anything else you buy. If you don't get any of those, but you needed something else, tonight is a good night to stock up. It'll be 10% off just those, if that's all you're doing. And also, if you got to experience the sauna in the last week, you're like, oh man, it was cold this morning. I could have used that. We're doing 50% off the sauna packages as well. So what that means, if you want unlimited for a month, normally that's $100, so that would be 50 today if you buy those tonight. So oftentimes people use one a week to go along with their adjustment schedule, or one every other week with their adjustment schedule. Just a package of 4, no time frame on it, is normally $50. You can get that for just 25 today. One by itself is $25. So that for $12.50. So much better. And then yeah, I think that's it. STEMWave set those up if you wanted to try that out. $29 if you set that up tonight. So nothing. Did I miss anything, Cheryl? I think we got it. So get your stuff, and I will see you next time.